So, for years, and this is video 2, by the way, guys. For years, we've been told that Julian Assange, there's no one trying to kill him. No one's trying to bump off Julian Assange. It's a conspiracy theory that, that there's no problem with him being extradited to the USA because, the US doesn't want to kill him or anything like that. It's a great big conspiracy theory. Well, US plotted to kill Julian Assange and make it look like an accident. Well, I love it how all these conspiracy theories end up being proven right most of the time. Well, most of them anyway. You're just a conspiracy theorist. Oh, wait, actually they're right. Shit. It also kind of makes you look like that makes you wonder about that video we put up on Monday. Makes you wonder about that one too, right? Because there's a guy who blew the whistle on the Department of Obama's department, and one of Obama's departments, sorry. And he was blowing the whistle on ISIS crimes being covered up, and he ended up supposedly committing suicide on the side of the road by shooting himself in the chest after telling people he wasn't suicidal. And then we literally have this. So anybody that sits there and says, no, the US does not want to bump or kill people. Well, no, they do. Like, we literally have had Hillary Clinton asking, can we just drone strike him? While he was in the US Embassy. But let's jump into this. Julian Assange, 48, wanted by the US Department of Justice over 18 charges, which actually relate to Iraq. They don't actually relate to anything to do with the 2016 election. 17 charges are allegedly breach of US Espionage Act and one of computer hacking. Once again, from like 1998, nothing to do with the 2016 election. Assange's accused say he's at suicide risk and an inhumane and degrading US jail. Edward Fritz also claims there was a US plot to snatch or murder his client, and I would believe it. US spies hatch a plot to kidnap or even poison Julian Assange using shady Spanish private detectives after he leaked 250,000 top secret documents online. His extradition hearing was told yesterday. The WikiLeaks founder is human rights barrister Edward Fitzgerald. Has previously represented Moore's murder, Maya Harinda, and hate preacher Abdul Hamana, said an attack inside London's Ecuadorean embassy would have looked like an accident. The QC said private security from Spanish company, acting on behalf of the US authorities, were involved in intrusive and sophisticated surveillance of his client, but were outed by a mysterious Liberian whistleblower, only known as Witness 2. The covert monitoring alleged began after UG's Global David Morales returned from Las Vegas Security Trade Fair in around July 2016 with a contract purportedly for a yacht belonging to Chute Adelson, a finance backer of Donald Trump. But in fact, Mr. Moores had indeed made a side agreement to provide information gathered about Mr. Assange to the dark side. In other words, US intelligence agencies, Mr. Fitzgerald told. Visitors, including lawyers for the 48-year-old who is facing extradition to America, have said to have been targeted by live stream audio and video devices placed inside the embassy and laser microphones from outside. Referring to Witness 2's evidence, Mr. Fitzgerald said there were conversations about whether there should be more extreme measures contemplated, such as kidnapping or poisoning Julian Assange in the embassy. Reading from witness statements, Mr. Fitzgerald continued, David Morass said that Americans were desperate and had every suggestion more extreme measures could be applied against the guest to put an end to the situation. He said there were suggestions the embassy door could be left open to make a kidnapping look like it could have been an accident, adding even the possibility of poisoning had been discussed. The extradition claims were made on the first day of Assange's extradition British legal face-off with Donald Trump's government, in which continued to Belmarsh Musgrave Court today. Assange, who's been held in Belmarsh prison after being dragged from the Ecuadorean embassy last year, appeared in the dock at the London court next door yesterday. He is battling to avoid extradition to Virginia, where he faces 18 charges and a jail term of up to 175 years for leaking state secrets in a 250,000 classified documents published by WikiLeaks online in 2010. Like I said, nothing to do with 2016 or anything to do with Trump winning the election. But Assange's QC Edward Fitzgerald said extradition to the American prison extradition would be the height of inhumanity, exposing him to the inhumane conditions in American prison, leading him to a high risk of suicide. James Lewis QC, representing the US government, said Assange had conspired with former US Army intelligence analyst Chelsea Manning to hack Department of Defense computers and share its secrets. Mr. Lewis said the documents that could only been taken from WikiLeaks were found in Osama bin Laden's Palestinian compound after the US Navy SEALs raided it and shot him dead in 2011. He's argued that Mr. Lewis is clear evidence that the information from the leaks was useful to the enemies of the United States of America. The British QC added that the US is aware of sources whose redacted names and other identifying information was contained in the classified documents published by WikiLeaks, who subsequently disappeared. Mr. Fitzgerald outlined the 48-year-old's defense, claiming that he's an innocent man whose extradition is a politically motivated by the Trump administration, who wants his head on a pike to scare off potential leakers and whistleblowers. And I'd agree with that. He said prosecution is not motivated by genuine concern from the criminal justice but by politics. The extradition should be barred because of the prosecution is being pursued for political motives and is not in good faith. He added the extradition attempts were directed at Assange because of the political opinions he holds, and has said that he would be denied a fair trial in the United States. Up to 500 supporters, including fashion designer Vinnie Westwood, camped outside, and District Judge Vanessa Barrister was forced to send a message out to the crowd asking them to reduce the volume of their Free Julian Assange chant because it was disrupting proceedings. Assange later stood up in the dock and said, "I am very appreciative of the public support and understand they must be disgusted by the judge stopped him from speaking, instead asking his lawyer Edward Fitzgerald QC to address her. He said what Mr. Assange is saying is he can't hear and can't concentrate because of the noise outside." Really? Anyway, maybe. Assange's legal team argue his case could have led to criminalizing activities critical to investigative journalists, but Mr. Lewis said but being a journalist does not exclude criminality and is inconceivable any response publishing would have knowingly published information. And it just keeps going on and on and on and on and on. It's actually quite a long article, actually. Let's check out the comments. Well, a total load of BS from Julian Assange's lawyers. If he's forced to come to the US, he'll be killed by our government. I would agree with that. They're going to do an Epstein on him. True. If only the FBI did a forensic examination of any of the servers hacked by Russia, they would know that Julian Assange's connection is, but they didn't. Well, it's nothing to do with 2016 election. In times of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. Oh well, that's a very good quote, actually. No surprise, the CIA is way too powerful. They would kill Trump if they got the chance. CIA would have paid Russia to do it. If the US wanted Assange dead, he would be worm food by now. No, I doubt that, but anyway. Like Castro was. Anyway, yeah. Look, at the end of the day, so we have that. We also have this article here. So, Julian Assange attempted to warn White House Hillary Clinton of impending WikiLeaks release. So, Julian Assange tried to contact Hillary Clinton and the White House when he realized that unredacted US diplomatic cables given to WikiLeaks were about to be dumped on the internet, his lawyer has told London extradition hearing. Assange has been sought by the United States on 18 counts of hacking. We already know that. A lawyer representing the United States has told the hearing that Assange, 48, was wanted for criminals and endangered people in Iraq. Now, the interesting thing is they're claiming that, but they couldn't prove it. And when they were asked to prove it, they couldn't. So, yeah. As far as I know, there is still no evidence that anything that Assange has given out or published, especially first, has put anybody's life in danger. The US Department has been, the government has been asked this several times. They cannot prove that it has at all. And they have not been able to prove it either way. Even in this case, they were asked once again, prove that this has actually endangered people, and they can't. They can't prove it. US authorities say his action is reckless, publishing unredacted classified diplomatic cables, put information, dissidents, journalists, and humane activists' rights at torture or abuse or death. Obtained to his defense, Assange's lawyer, Mark Summers, said allegations that he had helped Manning to break the government password, had encouraged the theft of secret data, and unknowingly put his lives in danger were lies, lies, and more lies. He told London's Woolwich Crown Court that WikiLeaks had received documents from Miss Manning in April 2010. He then made a deal with a number of newspapers, including New York Times, Britain's Guardian, and German's Der Spielberg, to begin releasing redacted parts of the 250,000 cables in November. Witnesses from Dilsberg said the US State Department had been involved in suggesting redactions in conference calls. However, a password that allowed access to the full unredacted material on WikiLeaks server was published in a book by the Guardian reporters about WikiLeaks in February 2011. A spokesman for the Guardian says that the authors were told the password was temporary and the book contained no details about the whereabouts of the files. That doesn't matter. If you know the password and you know there's a area where you can access this stuff, but you don't know the password and you try the password and it works, that's the problem, okay? So at the end of the day, that's on the Guardian. That's not on WikiLeaks. In 2011, the newspaper redacted... Sure, okay, maybe WikiLeaks could have changed the password, and they probably did as soon as they realised what had happened. But, yeah, I doubt Julian Assange was reading this book as soon as it came out. In 2011, the newspaper redacted WikiLeaks allegations it was responsible for the leak and said 2 versions of the cable database had been posted on a file-sharing network using the same password. The unencrypted version of the cables published on the web was not the one accessed by The Guardian in 2010, the newspaper said in 2011. So that's The Guardian covering its ass, by the sounds of that, but anyway. In August that year, another German newspaper reported it had discovered the password and had access to the archive. Assange was told to call back in a couple of hours. Mr. Summers said Assange attempted to warn the US government, calling the White House and attempting to speak to Miss Clinton, then Secretary of State, saying, unless we do something, people's lives are put at risk. Mr. Summers said the State Department had responded by suggesting that Assange call back in a couple of hours. The United States asked the United Kingdom to extradite Assange. Right. So it seems like, from what I can tell from this, the Guardian paper has gone through and accessed and released the password. Other people have realized this and downloaded the archive, downloaded the full archive. And when that has been noticed by Julian or by WikiLeaks, they've tried to call the White House to say there's a problem, the cables have been leaked, someone's accessed the password because the Guardian over in the UK, has published the password. They were then told to call back in a couple of hours. Terrific. Kind of makes Julian a lot more innocent than I thought he was even in the first place. Look, at the end of the day, if he didn't care about people's lives or anything like that, like the US military is claiming, then he wouldn't have tried to contact them. He wouldn't have called them and tried to contact them to say, hey, you know, the password's out. People's lives may be put at risk. You have a problem. You need to deal with this. So, yeah. Look, at the end of the day, I think this whole Julian Assange thing is political based. I think it's the deep state going after Julian Assange because at the end of the day, he got Donald Trump elected. Whether he intended to or not, it's in debate. I don't think he did. I think he just published the info because she was crooked. She's a terrible, horrible person, and she got busted. She got her hand caught in the jar so many times. Benghazi, DNC hacks, the DNC leaking emails to her. There was so many things that she could have done better that she didn't. So many things that she did wrong, and I don't think she expected to get caught because she thought she was better than everybody else. And she got busted. Now, if it had been Donald Trump, yeah, I reckon Julian Assange would have still published it. I don't think Julian cares who wins the election over there that much. Julian is very centrally focused. It's, I have information that you are corrupt. I will publish that information. Whether it's left, right, middle, who cares? Julian will still publish it, as far as I know. And that's why I look up to him. Yeah, sure, I might be biased on this, but at the end of the day, that's my view of Julian Assange. I don't know what everybody else thinks, but yeah, I know people in the military, and look, some of the shit that went down, it's bad. It's really, really bad. And I'm kind of glad that we have Julian Assange and these other people who want to blow the whistle and to bring it to light. Because some of these officials need to be held accountable. Benghazi, an absolute mess. Hillary left a mess in Benghazi bigger than what Bill left on Monica's dress. And she should be held accountable for it. But she probably won't. But that's what those WikiLeaks. Well, she sort of has been held accountable. I suppose she lost the election. But that's what the WikiLeaks prove. And that, to me, is the important thing. But yeah, I definitely think the US wants to make an example out of him. As for Trump, very quickly, I think Trump is playing ball because he knows if he was to go against the deep state on this, he would be assassinated. He would be JFK'd. Trump is probably buying his time, hoping it stalls out until last year or the last term. Once Trump gets re-elected in November, he's only then got the midterms to worry about, and then after that, he can't run again, right? Trump is through. So Trump can pardon Assange as much as he wants. And I do reckon he will pardon him. I think Trump is just simply buying his time because he knows if he goes against the deep state on this, they will kill him. They will get rid of him. You just have to look at Mueller, Ukraine Gate, everything that the US has been throwing at Trump. You imagine if he then goes against him on Assange. Whew! But yeah, guys, let me know what your thoughts are in that comment section below. Like I say, guys, there will be one more video that goes up today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the anti-Greta teen activist. Although she's 19, so it's not really a teen, but anyway. But apart from that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the 3 videos for the day. No, Ellen, we're not back. Okay, settle down. I should stop doing that joke. But guys, apart from that, we'll be, next video soon. And then after that, we'll be back tomorrow night. Apart from that, guys, enjoy yourselves. Have a great night, and we'll see you in the next video that'll be up shortly. Have a great night.